What's up, everyone, and welcome to this week's Cybersecurity Weekly, where we review the security events that happened in the last week. As always, I've broken the stories down in the timeline, and there's a list of the stories with time markers in the description below. So, of course, you can click on any of those time markers to jump around to any story that you want. Now, if you find my work valuable, I ask you to hit the like button and share this episode with anyone you know who can benefit from this information. Lastly, if you've not already, please also consider subscribing to my channel. When you spy on your neighborhood or your cafe customers, you might wonder if someone's actually watching, like Big Brother. Businesses and homeowners increasingly rely on Internet Protocol cameras for surveillance. All too often, this gives them a false sense of security, when in fact, threat actors can not only access and watch your camera feed, but exploit the unsecured device to hack into your network. New research by Cyber News shows an exponential rise in the uptake of internet-facing cameras. After looking at 28 of the most popular manufacturers, their research team found 3.5 million IP cameras exposed to the internet, signifying an 8-fold increase since April 2021. While the default security settings have improved over the review period, some popular brands either offer default passwords or no authentication, meaning anyone can spy on the spies. What's more, the overwhelming majority of internet-facing cameras are manufactured by Chinese companies, and while cosmetic security measures are in place, security leaders have long warned that technologies produced by Chinese companies can be exploited by the Chinese government. When they last did similar research, they discovered over 400,000 internet-facing cameras online. This time, the Cyber News research team found 3.5 million internet-facing cameras. Since this is a convenient and cheap tool to surveil anything from a parking lot, a warehouse, your doorstep, or even monitor your child sleeping using a baby cam, it's not surprising to see a surge in IP camera usage. While not surprising, the trend is worrying since internet-connected devices might be vulnerable to attacks. Threat actors can gain access to the camera live feed, collect sensitive data, and launch further attacks on the network. It's worrying that all analyzed brands have at least some models that allow users to keep default passwords or have no authentication setup whatsoever. Most of the public-facing cameras discovered are manufactured by Chinese company Hikvision. The Cyber News researcher team found over 3.37 million of its cameras worldwide. According to their researchers, they have the necessary security practice in place as they force users to create their unique passwords during an initial setup process. Nevertheless, the global popularity of Hikvision cameras has raised some eyebrows, and as is typical with China manufactured technology, it and other companies are facing a backlash from Western governments. Recently, the UK Parliament instructed government agencies to cease the deployment of Chinese equipment, including surveillance cameras, onto sensitive sites, saying the technology is produced by companies subject to the national intelligence law of the People's Republic of China. Apple released security updates to address a new zero-day vulnerability tracked to CVE 2022-42856 that is actively exploited in attacks against iPhones. The flaw is the 10th actively exploited zero-day vulnerability since the start of the year, meaning 2022. The IT giant released security bulletins for iOS, iPadOS 15.7.2, Safari 16.2, tvOS 16.2, and macOS Ventura 13.1. Apple addressed the vulnerability with improved state handling for the iPhone 6s, all models, iPhone 7, all models, iPhone SE, first generation, iPad Pro, all models, iPad Air 2, and later, iPad 5th generation and later, iPad Mini 4 and later, and iPod Touch 7th generation. The CVE 2022-42856 flaw is a type confusion issue that impacts the WebKit browser engine. An attacker can exploit the bug when processing specially crafted content to achieve arbitrary code execution. Processing maliciously crafted web content may lead to arbitrary code execution. Apple is aware of a report that this issue may have been actively exploited against versions of iOS released before iOS 15.1, reads the advisory published by Apple. A type confusion issue was addressed with improved state handling. The vulnerability was reported by whatever that says. Clément Lassinier, again of Google Threat Analysis Group. Good job, buddy. At this time, there are no public details about the attacks exploiting the vulnerability. Now, the other zero-day vulnerabilities addressed by Apple were also listed in the article. ESET researchers recently discovered a spear phishing campaign targeting Japanese political entities and attributed it to the Chinese-speaking apt group tracked as MirrorFace. The experts tracked the campaign as Operation Liberal Face. It aimed at Japanese political entities, especially the members of a specific political party. The campaign was launched in June 2022. The spear phishing messages were used to spread the load info backdoor, an implant used to deliver additional payloads and exfiltrate the credentials and sensitive data from the victims. The researchers also detailed the use of previously undescribed credential stealer named by ESET as Mirror Stealer. While there's some speculation that this threat actor might be related to the APT-10, according to Kaspersky, ESET is, or Macnica, APT-10 that's labeled Macnica by Kaspersky, ESET is unable to attribute it to any known app group. Therefore, ESET tracks it as a separate entity that they've named MirrorFace. Read the analysis published by ESET. So in particular, MirrorFace and Load Info is proprietary malware used exclusively against targets in Japan. It's been reported as targeting media, defense-related companies, think tanks, diplomatic organizations, and academic institutions. The goal of MirrorFace is espionage and exploitation of files of interest. One of the spear phishing messages analyzed by the researchers posed as an official communication from the PR department of a specific Japanese political party. The email contained a request related to the House of Councilors elections. It included an attachment that, upon execution, deployed the load info malware. The spear phishing emails sent on June 29, 2022, purported to be from the political party PR department. The content of the email urged the recipients to share the attached videos on their own social media profiles. The attachment was a self-extracting WinRAR archive. Upon opening it, it will start the load info infection. The ESET researchers also reported the use of the credential stealing Mirror Stealer by MirrorFace. Mirror Stealer steals credentials from multiple applications, including web browsers and email clients. Experts noticed that one of the targeted applications is Becky, an email client that is only used by Japanese users. The malware stores the stolen credentials in a temp file, but experts noticed the Mirror Stealer doesn't support data exfiltration, which means that attackers use other malware to do it. The U.S. Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, CISA, added 2 vulnerabilities impacting Veeam backup and replication software tracked to CVE 2022-26500 and CVE 2022-26501, with respectively CVS's base scores of 3.1 and 9.8. So CVS has version 3.1 base score of 9.8. So that's severe, to its known exploited vulnerabilities catalog. Now, according to Binding Operational Directory, BOD 22-01, reducing the significant risk of known exploited vulnerabilities, FCEB agencies have to address the identified vulnerabilities by the due date to protect their networks against attacks exploiting the flaws in the catalog. Experts also recommend private organizations review the catalog and address the vulnerabilities in their infrastructure. Now, according to the agency, the Veeam distribution service in the backup and replication application allows unauthenticated users to access internal API functions. A remote attacker can exploit the flaw by sending input to the internal API, which may lead to arbitrary code execution. Multiple vulnerabilities, this 2022-26500 and 2022-26501 in Veeam backup and replication allow execution malicious code remotely without authentication. This may lead to gaining control of the target system, reads the advisory published by Veeam. The flaws impact backup and replication product versions 9.5, 10, and 11. Patches are available for those versions. Now, both issues were discovered by Positive Technologies researcher Nikita Petrov. They believe that these vulnerabilities will be exploited in real attacks and will put many organizations at significant risk, said Nikita Petrov. That is why it is important to install updates as soon as possible, or at least take measures to detect abnormal activity associated with these products. CSA orders federal agencies again to address both vulnerabilities. Now, this is by January 3rd, 2022. The U.S. Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency also added a number of other issues to the catalog. Citrix urges administrators to apply security updates for a zero-day vulnerability tracked to CVE 2022-27518 in Citrix ADC and Gateway. The vulnerability is actively exploited by China-linked threat actors to gain access to target networks. We're aware of a small number of targeted attacks in the wild using this vulnerability, reads a blog posted by the technology giant. An unauthorized remote attacker can trigger the vulnerability to gain arbitrary code execution on the vulnerable appliance. A vulnerability has been discovered in Citrix Gateway and Citrix ADC, listed within the article, that if exploited, could allow an unauthenticated remote attacker to perform arbitrary code execution on the appliance. That's, again, the advisory by the company. Exploits of this issue on unmitigated appliances in the wild have been reported. The company strongly urges affected customers of Citrix ADC and Citrix Gateway to install the relevant updated versions of Citrix ADC or Gateway as soon as possible. So there's an update, make sure you install it. According to the company, the vulnerability impacts ADC and Citrix Gateway 12.1 and 13.0 before 13.0-58.32 or .32 builds. ADC and Gateway versions 13.1 are unaffected or is unaffected. The company urges customers who are using an impacted build with a SAML SP or IDP configuration to install the recommended versions immediately. The advisory points out that there are no workarounds for this vulnerability. Administrators can determine the configuration of their installation by inspecting the ns.config file for the following two commands, or for the commands that were listed in the original article. Now, we're doing a review, so we don't have to list them here. Now, the National Security Agency has also released a cybersecurity advisory with detection and mitigation guidance for tools leveraged by a malicious actor against ADC and the Gateway. According to the intelligence agency, China-linked APT5 hackers, aka UNC2630 and Manganese, demonstrated capabilities against application delivery deployments. As such, NSA, in collaboration with partners, has developed this threat hunting guidance to provide steps organizations can take to look for possible artifacts of this type of activity. Please note that this guidance does not represent all techniques, tactics, or procedures the actors may use when targeting these environments, reads the NSA advisory. This activity has been attributed to APT5, again also known as UNC2630, and Manganese. Talos researchers uncovered a phishing campaign distributing the QBot malware using a new technique that leverages scalable vector graphics. Anybody who's watched my weeklies knows that we have talked about QBot in the past. Now, it uses scalable vector graphics, or SVG, images embedded in HTML email attachments. HTML smuggling is a highly evasive technique for malware delivery that leverages legitimate HTML5 and JavaScript features. The malicious payloads are delivered via encoded strings in an HTML attachment or web page. The malicious HTML code is generated within the browser on the targeted device, which is already inside the security perimeter of the victim network. Once a victim receives the email and opens the attachment, their browser decodes and runs the embedded script, which then assembles a malicious payload directly on the victim device. In the attack detailed by Talos threat actors, embedded SVG files containing JavaScript that reassembles a base64 encoded QBot malware installer that is automatically downloaded through the victim browser. SVG images are constructed using XML, allowing them to be placed within HTML using ordinary XML markup tags. Talos has identified malicious emails featuring HTML attachments with encoded SVG images that themselves contain script tags. Including script tags within an SVG image is a legitimate feature of SVG, reads the analysis published by Talos. Unfortunately, this feature is being abused by attackers to smuggle JavaScript onto a victim computer. Attackers rely on the fact that most web browsers will happily decode and encrypt and execute, this JavaScript as if it were a standard part of the document HTML. Now, the JavaScript embedded in the SVG image contains a malicious zip archive. Then, the JavaScript assembled the malware on the end-user device. The malware payload is assembled directly on the victim machine and isn't transmitted over the network. For this reason, this HTML smuggling technique can bypass detection by security measures. The QBot malware spreads via phishing messages. The thread is able to hijack a victim email and send itself out as a reply to an existing email thread. The emails use an HTML attachment, and when the recipient opens it, the smuggled JavaScript code inside the SVG image starts to attack. The script creates a password-protected malicious zip archive, then presents the user with a dialog box to save the file. The password is included in the HTML attachment. If the recipient enters the password provided by the attacker and opens the zip archive, it can extract an ISO file. The ISO file allows infecting the victim with the CakeBot malware. In November 2022, Trend Micro researchers discovered a cryptocurrency mining campaign targeting the Linux users with Go-based CHAOS Malware. The CHAOS RAT is based on an open source project. Like the original project, the malware is able to terminate computing malware security software and is used to deploy the Monero cryptocurrency miner. The malware maintains persistence by altering the /etc/cron tab file and downloads itself every 10 minutes from pastebin. This is followed by downloading additional payloads, an XMRig miner, its configuration file, a shell script looping competition killer, and, most importantly, the RAD itself, reads the analysis published by Trend Micro. The researchers reported that the main downloader script and further payloads are hosted in multiple locations to make sure that the campaign remains active and the threat continues to spread. According to the experts, the main server appears to be located in Russia and is used for cloud bulletproofing hosting. The command and control server is used only for providing payloads, while the CHAOS rat connects to another command and control server that is likely located in Hong Kong, so you go from Russia to Hong Kong. Upon running the rat, it connects to the command and control server via its address and default port using a JSON web token for authorization. The malware sends detailed information on the infected machine to the command and control server using the command/device. The Go-based rat supports a number of functions, typical for rats, of course. Now, on the surface, the incorporation of a rat into the infection routine of a cryptocurrency mining malware might seem relatively minor, the researchers conclude. However, given the tool array of functions and the fact that this evolution shows that cloud-based threat actors are still evolving their campaigns, it's important that both organizations and individuals stay extra vigilant when it comes to security. InfraGard is a partnership between the Federal Bureau of Investigation and members of the private sector for the protection of the U.S. critical infrastructure. Through seamless collaboration, InfraGard connects owners and operators within critical infrastructure to the FBI to provide education, information sharing, networking, and workshops on emerging technologies and threats. The FBI InfraGard U.S. Critical Infrastructure Intelligence Portal was hacked, and a database containing the contact details of more than 80,000 high-profile private sector individuals is now available for sale on the Breached Cybercrime Forum. Way to go there, FBI. InfraGard, a program run by the U.S. Federal Bureau of Investigation to build cyber and physical threat information sharing partnerships with the private sector, this week saw its database of contact information on more than 80,000 members go up for sale on an English-language cybercrime forum, reported Cryptomining Security. Meanwhile, the hackers responsible are communicating directly with members through the InfraGard portal online using a new account under the assumed identity of a financial industry CEO that was vetted by the FBI itself. So they took over somebody else's account and they started communicating with those 80,000 or 79,999 other members through the actual InfraGard portal. The seller, who is a forum member that goes online with moniker USDOD, is demanding $50,000 for the full user database containing names and contact information. According to Brian Krebs, USDOD claims to have breached the FBI InfraGard system by applying for a new account using the name, social security number, date of birth, and other personal details of a major U.S. financial corporation that was highly likely to be granted InfraGard membership. The attacker applied for an account in November, and by early December, the account had been surprisingly approved. The attacker used a Python script developed by a friend to query the InfraGard API and enumerate all user data. InfraGard is a social media intelligence hub for high-profile persons, USDOD told Krebs. They even got a forum to discuss things. Now, the hack revealed the poor level of cybersecurity implemented by the FBI. The U.S. agency told Krebs that it is aware of a potential false account associated with InfraGard. This is an ongoing situation, and we're not able to provide any additional information at this time, reads the statement shared by the FBI, because they're probably still scrambling. USDOD said that the sale of the database is covered by the escrow service offered by the breached administrator, Pumpumpurin. Gemini crypto exchange is warning of phishing campaigns targeting its users after a threat actor obtained their data by breaching a third-party vendor. The company pointed out that its systems were not impacted. Some Gemini customers have recently been the target of phishing campaigns that we believe are the result of an incident at a third-party vendor. This incident led to the collection of Gemini customer email addresses and partial phone numbers, reads the advisory published by the crypto exchange. No Gemini account information or systems were impacted as a result of this third-party incident, and all funds and customer accounts remain secure. Now, the news was first reported by Bleepy Computer, which observed multiple offers on several hacking forums for a database allegedly containing the personal information, like email addresses and partial phone numbers, of 5.7 million Gemini users. The database seems to be available for sale since September, when a seller was offering it for roughly $520,000 worth of Bitcoin. The advisory published by the company also provides security best practices to mitigate exposure to phishing attacks. Users are recommended to activate two-factor authentication protection, of course, use hardware security keys to access their accounts. Microsoft's December 2022 Patch Tuesday security updates addressed 52 vulnerabilities in Microsoft Windows and Windows components, Azure, Office, and Office components, sysinternals, Microsoft Edge, Chrome-based, SharePoint Server, and the .NET Framework. 12 of these vulnerabilities were submitted through the ZDI program. 6 vulnerabilities are rated critical, 43 important, and 3 are moderate in severity. Microsoft December 2022 Patch Tuesday security updates fixed 2 zero-day vulnerabilities. One of the new issues addressed this month is listed as publicly known at the time of release and one is actively exploited. The actively exploited zero-day is a Windows Smart Screen Security Feature Bypass vulnerability tracked to CVE 2022-44698. An attacker can craft a malicious file that would evade mark of the web defenses, resulting in a limit loss of integrity and availability of security features such as protected view in Microsoft Office, which rely on the MOTW tagging. Reads the advisory published by the IT Giant, of course. Another interesting flaw addressed by Microsoft is a DirectX graphics kernel elevation of privilege vulnerability tracked to CVE 2022-44710. An attacker who successfully exploited this vulnerability could gain system privileges, reads the advisory. Successful exploitation of this vulnerability requires an attacker to win a race condition. A full list of CVEs released by Microsoft for December is available within the original article or on Microsoft's own website. Kaspersky researchers reported that a hack-for-hire group dubbed Evilnum is targeting travel and financial entities. The attacks are part of a campaign aimed at legal and financial investment institutions in the Middle East and Europe. The campaign took place in 2020 and 2021, but experts speculate it has been active since 2015. The threat actors employed a new variant of the Janicab malware that relies on public services like WordPress and YouTube as dead drop resolvers. The researchers spotted the new variant while investigating Evilnum, aka Deathstalker, intrusions that use the Janicab malware family. The experts believe Deathstalker is a group of mercenaries or threat actors that act as an information broker in financial circles. The affected entities fall within the traditional sphere of Deathstalker targeting, primarily legal and financial investment management institutions. However, they have also recorded a potentially new affected industry, travel agencies, reads the analysis published by Kaspersky. The Middle East region and Europe were also seen as a typical workspace for Deathstalker, while varying intensity between the countries. Interestingly, this is the first time that they have noted legal entities in Saudi Arabia being targeted by the group. Kaspersky reported Janicab infections in different countries, including Egypt, Georgia, Saudi Arabia, the UAE, and the UK. The spearphishing messages aim at distributing a link-based dropper inside a zip archive, a technique observed in previous campaigns attributed to the Evilnum group. The attackers used different phishing themes depending on different types of victims. In a sample Janicab case, the attackers used an industrial corporate profile, hydraulics, matching the subject of a decoy used in a previous Power Pepper intrusion. Upon opening the link file, a series of chained malware files are dropped, leading to the deployment of the VBScript-based Janicab implant. The malware can be used to execute commands on the infected system and deploy additional tools. Janicab is a modular interpreted language malware. Recent variants replace the Snapit.exe tool used to capture screenshots with other custom-built tools that do the same job. New variants also lack audio recording capabilities implemented in older variants. Newer versions of the modular malware include a keylogger module and features to avoid detection. The researchers noticed that in recent attacks, threat actors used unlisted old YouTube links that were used in 2021 intrusions. This technique allows reusing command and control infrastructure. Kaspersky attributes with high confidence the recent attacks to the Deathstalker based on the use of the new Janicab variant, unique TTPs, similarities in the cyber kill chain, victimology, and command and control infrastructure. Juniper Networks researchers spotted a previously undocumented Python backdoor targeting VMware ESXi servers. The researchers discovered the backdoor in October 2022. Experts pointed out that the implant is notable for its simplicity, persistence, and capabilities. The experts were not able to determine the initial compromise due to limited log retention on the compromised server. They speculate attackers may have exploited known issues like CV 2019-5544 and CV 2020-3992 in ESXi Open SLP service. The backdoor maintains persistence by modifying subsystems files such as etc rc local d/local sh, which is executed at startup. The following line of code, or there is a line of code that launches a Python script that starts a web server. The web server accepts password-protected post requests from the attackers. Each request can include a base64 encoded command payload or launch a reverse shell on the host. Well, the Python script used in this attack is cross-platform and can be used with little or no modification on Linux or other Unix-like systems. There are several indications that this attack was designed specifically to target ESXi. Here's the analysis published by Juniper. The name of the file and its location, store, packages, vmtools.py was chosen to raise little suspicion on a virtualization host. In order to allow access to remote attackers, they changed the configuration of the EXI reverse HTTP proxy. The mappings from path names to network ports are stored in the configuration file, etc. VMware RHTTP proxy / endpoints.conf. The changes to the above file or to that file are persistent because it is one of the system files that are backed up and restored automatically at a reboot. In order to determine if your installation was compromised, researchers recommend reviewing the vmtools.py and local sh files. The hashed password in vmtools.py has been redacted because it might uniquely identify the compromised server, so that the file hash should not be used as an indication of compromise. The modifications to hostd and hostd/probe sh and endpoints.conf are shown in their entirety within the article. Experts also recommended applying all vendor patches as soon as possible, restricting incoming network connections. The U.S. Department of Justice last week announced the seizure of 48 domains associated with the distributed denial of service for hire service platforms, aka booter services, used by threat actors. The authorities charged 6 suspects: Jeremiah Sam Evans Miller, who's 23, Angel Manuel Collin Jr., 37, Shamar Shattock, 19, Corey Anthony Palmer, John M. Dobbs, and Joshua Lang for running the platforms. The defendants have been charged with conspiracy to violate and violating the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act related to the alleged operation of a booter service. The Justice Department today announced the court-authorized seizure of 48 internet domains associated with some of the world-leading DDoS-for-Hire services, as well as criminal charges against 6 defendants who allegedly oversaw computer attack platforms commonly called booter services, reads the press release published by DOJ. The FBI is now in the process of seizing the websites that allowed paying users to launch powerful distributed denial of service or DDoS attacks that flood targeted computers with information and prevent them from being able to access the internet. The websites seized by the feds were used to launch millions of actual or attempted DDoS attacks targeting victims worldwide. Customers paid the platforms to launch powerful distributed denial of service attacks against their target websites. The services were involved in attacks against millions of individuals and organizations in multiple industries, including educational institutions, government agencies, and gaming platforms. The suspects offered these services, claiming they were legitimate stressor services that could be used by organizations for network testing. However, an affidavit filed in the support of court-authorized warrants to seize the booter sites revealed that thousands of communications between booter site administrators and their customers make clear that both parties are aware that the customer is not attempting to attack their own computers. DOJ pointed out that these law enforcement operations were conducted in conjunction with Operation Power Off, an ongoing coordinated effort among international law enforcement agencies aimed at dismantling criminal DDoS-for-Hire platforms. In December 2018, the FBI seized over 15 domains associated with DDoS-for-Hire services. The U.S. District Court for the Central District of California ordered the seizure of the platforms, including criticalboot.com, ragebooter.com, downthem.org, and quantumstress.net on December 19, 2018. The fire and rescue service in the state of Victoria, Australia, has shut down its network after a cyber attack launched by an external third party. Fire Rescue Victoria Acting Commissioner Gavin Freeman revealed that the outage was first observed between 4 a.m. and 5 a.m. on a Thursday. The cyber attack is affecting most of FRV systems, including network emails and dispatch. Importantly, community safety has not been compromised, and FRV continues to dispatch crews and appliances through mobile phones, pagers, and radios, reads a statement published on Friday. Preliminary investigations confirm this has been a cyber attack by an external third party and that FRV systems are impacted. FRV continues to operate by dispatch crews and appliances through mobile phones, pagers, and radios. I'm assuming they're saying notifications, but anyway. We're doing it in a more manual way, but it doesn't have any impact on response times or community safety, the acting commissioner said. At the time, it was still unclear if FRV has suffered a ransomware attack. In August 2022, a former Twitter employee, Ahmad Abawamo was found guilty of gathering private information of certain Twitter users and passing them to Saudi Arabia. Now, Abawamo has been sentenced to 3.5 years in prison for spying on individuals on behalf of Saudi Arabia. A California man was sentenced yesterday to 42 months in federal prison for his role in accessing, monitoring, and conveying confidential and sensitive information that could be used to identify and locate Twitter users of interest to the Saudi royal family. Reads the press release published by DOJ. Ahmad Abawame, 45, formerly of Walnut Creek, and currently residing in Seattle, was convicted of acting as a foreign agent without notice to the Attorney General, conspiracy, wire fraud, international money laundering, and falsification of records in a federal investigation on August 9th, following a 2-week jury trial. Now, I wonder why he isn't just banned from the internet and use of computers altogether, but whatever. In November 2019, the former Twitter employees Abuamu and the Saudi citizen Ali Al-Zabara had been charged with spying on thousands of Twitter users on behalf of the Saudi Arabian government. The two former Twitter employees operated for the Saudi Arabian government with the intent of unmasking dissidents using the social network. Representatives of the Saudi Arabian government recruited the duo in 2014. Their mission was to gather non-public information of Twitter accounts associated with known prominent critics of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and the royal family. Abuamo and Al-Zabara had unauthorized access to information associated with some profiles, including email addresses, devices used, user-provided biographical information, birth dates, logs that contain the user browser information, a log of all of a particular user actions on a Twitter platform at any given time, and other info that can be used to geolocate a user, such as IP addresses and phone numbers. According to the indictment, Al-Zabara joined Twitter in August 2013 as a site reliability engineer. He worked with the Saudi officials between May 21st and November 18th, 2015. He's accused of allegedly spying on more than 6,000 Twitter accounts, including tens of users. I really can't stand when they say tens of users, but whatever, tens of users for which Saudi Arabian law enforcement had submitted emergency disclosure requests to Twitter. Abuwama was charged with acting as a foreign agent on U.S. soil. He also provided falsified records to the feds to interfere with the investigation. The man also deleted certain information from the social media platform, and in some cases, he shut down Twitter accounts at the request of Saudi Arabian officials. Of course, he was also able to unmask the identities of some of the users on behalf of the Saudi Arabian government. Fortinet urges customers to update their installs to address an actively exploited FortiOS SSL-VPN vulnerability. Track to CVE 2022-42475 that could be exploited by an unauthenticated remote attacker to execute arbitrary code on devices. The CVE 2022-42475 flaw is a heap-based buffer overflow issue that resides in FortiOS SSL-VPN. A heap-based buffer overflow vulnerability CWE-122 in FortiOS SSL-VPN may allow a remote unauthenticated attacker to execute arbitrary code or commands via specifically crafted requests. Reads the advisory published by the security vendor. Fortinet is aware of an instance where this vulnerability was exploited in the wild. Fortinet recommends its customers checking the following indicators of compromise. Log description equals application crashed, and message equals blah, blah, blah. Application SSL-VPN signal received. If you want to get all of this stuff, just go to the original article. And then there's a whole bunch of numbers there. The vulnerability was first disclosed by the cybersecurity firm Olympe Cyber Defense. FortiOS version 7.2 through 7.2.2, FortiOS version 7.0.0 through 7.0.8. So all of these versions are affected. Google announced end-to-end encryption for Gmail. With Gmail's client-side encryption beta, users can send and receive encrypted emails within their domain and outside of their domain. Google end-to-end encryption was already available for users of Google Drive, Google Docs, Sheets, Slides, Google Meet, and Google Calendar. The IT giant announced that the client-side encryption in Gmail on the web will be available in beta for Google Workspace Enterprise Plus, Education Plus, and Education Standard customers. Users can apply for the beta until January 20th, 2023. Using end-to-end encryption for Gmail will make sensitive data in the email body and attachments from indecipherable to Google servers. Client-side encryption helps strengthen the confidentiality of your data while helping to address a broad range of data sovereignty and compliance needs, reads the announcement published by Google. So end-to-end encryption is encrypting it, say, in your browser or from your Microsoft Outlook if you've connected Google Gmail, so that when you send it through Google servers, it is encrypted, not even Google can read it, and then it gets decrypted on the other side. Using client-side encryption in Gmail ensures sensitive data in the email body and attachments are indecipherable to Google servers. What I just explained. Customers regain or retain control over encryption keys and the identity service to access those keys. Google Workspace client-side encryption allows handling content encryption in the client browser before data is transmitted or stored in Google-based storage. End users can add client-side encryption to any message by clicking the lock icon and select additional encryption. Google Workspace already uses the latest cryptographic standards to encrypt all data at rest and in transit between their facilities. Client-side encryption helps strengthen the confidentiality of your data while helping to address a broad range of data sovereignty and compliance needs, which is just reciting what was said in the previous slide. According to the announcement, client-side encryption is already available to, again, Google Drive, Google Docs, Sheets and Slides, Google Meet, and Google Calendar Beta. FortiGuard Labs researchers spotted a new Go-based botnet dubbed GoTrim that has been spotted scanning and brute forcing WordPress and OpenCart websites. The botnet was named GoTrim because it was written in Go and uses trim to split data sent and received from the command and control server. The campaign has been active since at least September 2022, and according to the experts, it is still ongoing. The malware uses a bot network to perform distributed brute force attacks against target websites. Each bot is given a long list of target websites and a set of credentials to use in brute force attacks. After a successful login, a bot client is installed into the newly compromised system. It then waits for further commands from the threat actors, thereby expanding the bot network. Here's a report published by Fortinet. GoTrim only reports credentials to the command and control server after a successful brute force attempt. The bot lacks any code for propagation or the deployment of other payloads. The experts noticed PHP scripts that download and execute GoTrim bot clients. The researchers speculate the attackers are abusing compromised credentials to deploy PHP scripts to install the GoTrim botnet. The analysis also revealed that the bot does not maintain persistence in the infected system. Typically, each script downloads the GoTrim malware from a hard-coded URL to a file in the same directory as the script itself and executes it. Continues to report. To cover its tracks, both the downloader script and GoTrim brute forcer are deleted from the infected system. It does not maintain persistence in the infected system. The GoTrim bot can work in both server and client mode. In the server mode, the bot starts a server to listen for incoming requests from the command and control server, while in a client mode, it sends HTTP post requests to the command and control server. Command and control communications are encrypted using the advanced encryption standard in gallows counter mode with a key derived from a passphrase embedded in the malware binary. Once the bot ID is generated, GoTrim creates an asynchronous Go routine that sends a beacon request to the command and control server on both client and server modes. GoTrim is able to detect anti-bot techniques used by web hosting providers and CDNs such as Cloudflare and SiteGround and evades some of their checks. The bot tries to mimic legitimate requests from Mozilla Firefox on 64-bit Windows to bypass anti-bot solutions. The Global Pravasi Rishta portal, India government platform for connecting with its overseas population, leaked sensitive data including names and passport details. The Cyber News research team has been alerted that the Global Pravasi Rishta portal was leaking sensitive user data. Unfortunately, the tip proved accurate. The platform exposed usernames, surnames, country of residence, and email addresses in plain text, as well as occupation status, phone, and passport numbers. The leak was possible because of poor security measures, such as a lack of authentication methods. The Global Pravasi Rishta portal is a platform with the goal of connecting 30 million Indian expats. The platform owner is the Ministry of External Affairs of India, the country government body responsible for implementing foreign policy. The portal is meant as a tool for communicating between the Ministry of External Affairs, Indian missions, and the Indian diaspora. Pravasi Rishta means expatriate relationships in English. The Cyber News team has reached out to the Ministry of External Affairs to inform it of the leak. They did not receive a reply, but several days later, the security issue had fixed. The data was exposed via the website edit function, where manipulating the URL allowed anyone to access the edit details of any user on the site. In other words, it takes only one registered user to access all of them, since changing the user ID in the URL leads to another user account. If you want to know what the risk is for exposure of passport numbers, you can read the original post published by Cyber News. The Lockbit ransomware gang claims to have stolen 76 gigabytes from the California Department of Finance and is threatening to leak the stolen data if the victims will not pay the ransom by December 24th. On December 12th, the California Department of Finance confirmed the security incident with a statement. The California Cybersecurity Integration Center is actively responding to a cybersecurity incident involving the California Department of Finance, reads the statement. The intrusion was proactively identified through coordination with state and federal security partners. Upon identification of this threat, digital security and online threat hunting experts were rapidly deployed to assess the extent of the intrusion, to evaluate, contain, and mitigate future vulnerabilities. The response effort includes multiple public and private agencies, including the partners who make up the CSIC, the Governor Office of Emergency Services, Department of Technology, California Military Department, and California Highway Patrol. The group added the U.S. agency to the list of victims published on its Tor leak site. The Lockbit ransomware gang claims to have stolen databases, confidential data, financial documents, certification, court and sexual proceedings in court, IT documents, and more. The images published by the gang as proof of the hack include spreadsheets containing financial data, a contract, 2022 budget details, and more. Lockbit is currently one of the most active and dangerous ransomware operations. It is responsible for the majority of ransomware attacks conducted in 2022. Microsoft spotted a cross-platform botnet tracked as MC Crash, which has been designed to launch distributed denial-of-service attacks against private Minecraft servers. The IT giant tracks this cluster of activity as Dev 1028, which is Microsoft's special way of naming threat actors. The experts report that the botnet originates from malicious software downloads on Windows devices, but it supports a propagating mechanism to infect multiple Linux-based devices. MC Crash enumerates default credentials on Internet-exposed secure shell-enabled devices. The botnet spreading mechanism makes it a unique threat because while the malware can be removed from the infected source PC, it could persist on unmanaged IoT devices in the network and continue to operate as part of the botnet, reads the post published by Microsoft. The Dev 1028 botnet is known to launch distributed denial-of-service DDoS attacks against private Minecraft servers. The DDoS botnet was designed to target private Minecraft Java servers using crafted packets. Experts believe it is behind a DDoS-for-Hire service offered on forums or darknet sites. Most of the infections have been reported in Russia. Other countries where experts observed infections are Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, Ukraine, Belarus, Czechia, Italy, India, and Indonesia. According to Microsoft, the initial infections were caused by the installation of malicious cracking tools that purport to acquire illegal Windows licenses. Once the cracking tool is launched, it executes a PowerShell command to download and launch a fake version of svc host.exe. The cracking tools contain additional code that downloads and launches a fake version of svc host.exe through PowerShell command. In some cases, the download file is named service hosts with an S at the end, .exe. Next, servicehost.exe launches malicious.py, which is the main Python script that contains all the botnet logic. The malicious code scans the web for systems running Debian, Ubuntu, CentOS, and IoT workloads such as Raspbian, then launches a dictionary attack to propagate. Once a device is found, the bot downloads the file updater.zip from the repo archivent.net onto the device to create the file fuse. Then the fuse file downloads a copy of malicious.py onto the device. Based on their analysis, the botnet is primarily used to launch DDoS attacks against private Minecraft servers using known server DDoS commands and unique Minecraft commands. Continues to report below are some of the commands specifically were listed within the original article. The attack _MC crash command sends environment random payload of specific size -a as the username in order to saturate the resources of the server and make it crash. The analysis of the malware revealed that it was designed to target Minecraft Server 1.12.2 version. However, the experts speculate all versions between 1.7.2 and 1.18.2 can be affected by this attack. Microsoft revised the severity rate for the CVE 2022-37958 vulnerability. The IT giant now rated it as critical because it discovered that threat actors can exploit the bug to achieve remote code execution. CVE 2022-37958 was originally classified as an information disclosure vulnerability. That's a huge jump. That impacts the SPNEGO extended negotiation security mechanism. The SPNEGO extended negotiation security mechanism extends simple and protected GSS-API negotiation mechanism described in RFC 4178. The Spinego Extended Negotiation Security Mechanism allows a client and server to negotiate the choice of security mechanism to use. The issue was initially rated as high severity because the successful exploitation of this issue required an attacker to prepare the target environment to improve exploit reliability. Microsoft addressed the vulnerability with the release of Patch Tuesday security updates for September 2022. IBM Security X-Force researcher Valentina Palmiotto demonstrated that this vulnerability is a pre-authentication remote code execution issue, not a post-authentication, that impacts a wide range of protocols. It has the potential to be wormable and can be exploited to achieve remote code execution. The vulnerability could allow attackers to remotely execute arbitrary code by accessing the NegoX protocol via any Windows application protocol that authenticates, such as server message block, or SMB, or remote desktop, RDP by default, reads the post published by IBM. This list of affected protocols is not complete and may exist wherever Spinego is in use, including in simple message or SMTP and hypertext transfer protocol, HTTP, when Spinego authentication negotiation is enabled, such as for use with Kerberos or NetNTLM authentication. Demonstrating CVE 2022-37958 RCE vulnerability reachable via any Windows application protocol that authenticates it. Yes, that means RDP, SMB, and many more. Please patch this one. It's serious. So that was the tweet. Unlike the CVE 2017-0144 flaw triggered by the external blue exploit, which only affected the SMB protocol, the CVE 2022-37958 flaw could potentially affect a wider range of Windows systems due to a larger attack surface of services exposed to the public internet. Again, HTTP, RDP, SMB, etc., or on the internal network. The expert pointed out that this flaw can be exploited without user interaction or authentication. IBM announced that it will release full technical details in the second quarter of 2023 to give time to organizations to apply the security updates. Wow, the MuddyWater APT group is back with updated TTPs. Deep Instinct Threat Research Team uncovered a new campaign conducted by the MuddyWater APT, aka Seedworm, aka Temp.Zagros, and aka Static Kitten, that was targeting Armenia, Azerbaijan, Egypt, Iraq, Israel, Jordan, Oman, Qatar, Tajikistan, and United Arab Emirates. The first MuddyWater campaign was observed in late 2017 when targeting entities in the Middle East. The group evolved over the years by adding new attack techniques to its arsenal. Over the years, the app group also targeted European and North American nations. In January, U.S. Cyber Command officially linked the MuddyWater app group to Iran Ministry of Intelligence and Security, MOIS. The campaign observed by Deep Instinct started in September, and it differs from past ones for the use of a new remote administration tool called Synchro. MuddyWater is not the only threat actor abusing Synchro. The tool has also been employed in Batloader and Luna Moth campaigns. The app group used an HTML attachment as a lure and used additional providers for hosting the archives containing the installers of the remote administration tool. HTML attachments are often delivered to the recipients and not blocked by antivirus and email security solutions. In July, the threat actors were spotted using the Screen Connect remote administration tool delivered using an installer named Promotion.msi. The name Promotion.msi was also used for the installers employed in the current campaign. There was a screenshot within the article that was communicating with the instance-q927ui blah.com domain or subdomain. This instance was communicating with another MuddyWater MSI installer named Urtica.msi, which is a name of a Saudi organization. In the current wave, MuddyWater used the same name Urtica.msi, but with Synchro installer. Reads the Deep Instinct analysis. The target geolocations and sectors also align with previous targets of MuddyWater. Combined, these indicators provide us with enough proof to confirm that this is the MuddyWater threat group. Synchro has a 21-day trial offer that provides a fully featured web GUI to completely control a computer. You choose the subdomain to be used by your MSP, continues to report. While investigating some of the installers that MuddyWater used, they saw that for each unique mail, a new MSI was installed. In most cases, MuddyWater used a single subdomain with a single MSI installer that allows them to use the free version basically forever. The experts also shared indicators of compromise, or over and over and over again. The experts also shared indicators of compromise for the recent campaign. Samba released updates to address multiple vulnerabilities tracked to CVE 2022-38023, CVE 2022-37966, CVE 2022-37967, and CVE 2022-45141 that can be exploited to take control of impacted systems. On December 15, 2022, Samba announced the 4.17.4, 4.16.8, and 4.15.13 security releases to address the above issues. Samba is a free software re-implementation of the SMB protocol. Remember, we just talked about that in the Microsoft vulnerability networking protocol that provides file and print services for various Microsoft Windows clients and can integrate with a Microsoft Windows Server domain either as a domain controller or as a domain member. The software runs on most Unix-like systems such as Linux, Solaris, AIX, and BSD variants, including Apple macOS Server and macOS Client, macOS X 10.2 and above. The Social Blade is an American social media analytics platform. The company disclosed a security breach after a database containing company data was offered for sale on a hacker forum last week. On December 14th, we were notified of a potential data breach whereby an individual had acquired exports of our user database and were attempting to sell it on a hacker forum, reads the data breach notification. Samples were posted, and we verified that they were indeed real. It appears this individual made use of a vulnerability on our website to gain access to our database. The seller is offering a database containing 5.6 million records dated September 2022. The data will be sold only to 1 or 2 buyers. The seller, Pseudo-Creamed, also announced that the sale is covered by the escrow service offered by the breached forum administrators Pumpurin. Looking for 1 to 2 sales, then lead thread will be deleted, reads the announcement. The exposed data include email addresses, password hashes, client IDs, IP addresses, and tokens for business API users, authentication tokens for connected accounts, and non-personal and internal data was compromised. The company pointed out that the credit card data was not exposed. The good news is that passwords are hashed using the bcrypt, a hashing algorithm that is considered robust. However, the company recommends users to change their password as a precaution and remain vigilant to recognize phishing attempts. This is not the first time that the Social Blade infrastructure was breached. In 2016, the company suffered another security breach. Cisco Talos. Researchers reported an increase in TrueBot infections. Threat actors have shifted from using malicious emails as their primary attack vector to other techniques. TrueBot has been active since 2017, and some researchers linked it to the Silence group, while a recent investigation linked it to a threat actor TA505, aka Evil Corp. The Talos experts identified 2 different TrueBot botnets. One is distributed worldwide with a particular focus on Mexico, Pakistan, and Brazil, and the second one is focused on the US. The delivery methods used in recent attacks include the exploitation of a now patched vulnerability, CVE 2022-31199, in NetRix Auditor, an IT asset management tool, and the Raspberry Robin worm. The experts highlighted that the attacks took place only a few weeks after the vulnerability was publicly disclosed, as circumstances suggest threat actors quickly test new attack vectors. The researchers believe with moderate confidence that during November, the threat actors started using yet another distribution technique. Recently, the attackers have shifted from using malicious emails as their primary delivery method to other techniques. In August, we saw, or the analysts saw, a small number of attacks that exploited a recent remote code execution vulnerability in NetRix Auditor. In October, a large number of infections leveraged Raspberry Robin, a recent malware spread through USB drives as a delivery vector. Recent analysis published by Talos post-compromise activity included data theft and execution of CLOP ransomware. TrueBot is a downloader malware. It is used to infect systems, collect information on the targets, and deploy additional malicious payloads. Gathered data are sent back to the attacker command and control center. The researchers noticed a set of commands to exfiltrate stolen data through a previously unknown custom tool dubbed Teleport. The analysis of the commands issued via Teleport reveals that the tool is used by the attackers to collect files from OneDrive and downloads folders and from the victim Outlook email messages. The Talos telemetry reported multiple occurrences of Raspberry Robin delivering TrueBot. The researchers investigated an attack leveraging TrueBot to deliver the CLOP ransomware. The attackers, however, appear to have switched to an unknown TrueBot distribution mechanism starting in November, with the vectors succeeding in co-opting over 500 internet-facing Windows servers located in the US, Canada, and Brazil into a botnet, concludes the report that also includes indicators of compromise. Twitter confirmed that the recent data leak of millions of profiles resulted from the 2021 data breach that the company disclosed in August 2022. At the end of July, a threat actor leaked data of 5.4 million Twitter accounts that were obtained by exploiting a now fixed vulnerability in the popular social media platform. The threat actor offered for sale the stolen data on the popular hacking forum Breached Forums. The seller claimed that the database was containing data, like emails, phone numbers, of users ranging from celebrities to companies. The seller also shared a sample of data in the form of a CSV file. In August, the company confirmed that the data breach was caused by the now-patched zero-day flaw submitted by Zirinovsky via bug bounty platform HackerOne, and that a researcher received a $5,040 bounty. We want to let you know about a vulnerability that allowed someone to enter a phone number or email address into the login flow in the attempt to learn if that information was tied to an existing Twitter account, and if so, which specific account, reads the Twitter advisory. In January 2022, we received a report through our bug bounty program of a vulnerability that allowed someone to identify the email or phone number associated with an account, or if they knew a person's email or phone number, they could identify their Twitter account if one existed, continues the social media firm. This bug resulted from an update to our code in June 2021. When we learned about this, we immediately investigated and fixed it. At that time, we had no evidence to suggest someone had taken advantage of the vulnerability. In November, the website 9to5mac.com claimed that the data breach was worse than initially reported by the company. The website reports that multiple threat actors exploited the same flaw, and that the data available in the cybercrime underground have different sources. A massive Twitter data breach last year, exposing more than 5 million phone numbers and email addresses, was worse than initially reported. We've been shown evidence that the same security vulnerability was exploited by multiple bad actors, and the hacked data has been offered for sale on the dark web by several sources, reads the post published by 9to5Mac. 9to5Mac claims are based on the availability of the dataset that contained the same information in a different format offered by a different threat actor. The source told the website that the database was just one of a number of files they had seen. It seems that the impacted accounts are only those having the discoverability phone option, which is hard to find within Twitter settings, enabled in late 2021. The archive seen by 9to5Mac includes data belonging to Twitter users in the UK, almost every other EU country, and parts of the US. VMware addressed 3 vulnerabilities in multiple products, including virtual machine escape flaw tracked as CVE 2022-31705 that was exploited at the GeekPawn 2022 hacking competition. A working exploit for the CVE 2022-31705 vulnerability was demonstrated by Ant security researcher Yu Hao Zhang during the GeekPawn, a hacking contest run by the Tencent Keen Security Lab. So it says, here's my demo of the VM escape exploit on the latest version of VMware Fusion along with ESXi and Workstation. It was used to participate in GeekPawn 2022 and won the championship. And then there's a link to a Twitter post. The CVE 2022-31705 vulnerability with the CVS's version 3 base score of 9.3 is a heap out of bounds write issue in the USB 2.0 controller. VMware, ESXi, Workstation, and Fusion contain a heap out-of-bounds write vulnerability in the USB 2.0 controller, reads the advisory published by the virtualization giant. A malicious actor with local administrative privileges on a virtual machine may exploit this issue to execute code as the virtual machine VMX process running on the host. On ESXi, the exploitation is contained within the VMX sandbox, whereas on Workstation and Fusion, this may lead to code execution on the machine where Workstation or Fusion is installed. The company also addressed a command injection and directory traversal security vulnerabilities, respectively tracked to CVE 2022-31702 and CVE 2022-31703, impacting the VMware vRealize Network Insight solution. And they detailed the flaws within the original article. And that's the news. Thanks again for watching. Don't forget to share and subscribe if you have not already, and smash the bell if you haven't already. And I'll see you on the next episode. Take care.
Don't forget to ride!